1040, 1050, page 1050. Just get out my trusty, okay. Page 1050. Yesterday we spoke about the mother bird. We were speaking about the mother bird and it's sending off the mother bird. And in Pasuk Ches, which is right in the middle of the page, right in the middle of page 1050. So the very next thing it says, Kisivne bayis chodosh, when you build a new home. Ve'asisa maki legagecha. Ve'asisa maki legagecha. You should make a railing for your roof. V'lo samim damim beveisecha, there should not be blood in your house. Ki yipol hanofel mimeno, when somebody falls off. Now here we have a technical mitzvah. If you have a roof that is a usable roof, in the old days, in the Gemara talks about they had a flat roof. They used to build their sukkahs on the roof. Can I trouble you to close the door over there? If you can close the door, and I told you the rule is no technology in the shear, anywhere in the room, no technology. If you need to be looking at a phone, so take it outside. It's disrespectful for the Torah. So the Torah says if you build a house. In the old days, the Gemara says they used to build a sukkah on the roof because the roofs were flat. The roof was a usable, like we would call a porch. So the roofs were flat. Nowadays, if you have a slanted roof, say nobody goes up on a slanted roof. You don't have to build. It's not usable. Why is it funny?
Because my kids would still do it.
Yeah, I said people don't go up on a roof. Yeah, teenagers do. The teenagers. I said people don't. But if it's got to be what we'd call a usable roof, we're talking about a usable roof, and so then you have a mitzvah to build a makkah. A makkah is a railing that has to be at least 10 tefachim high. 10 tefachim is about 36 inches, so that people don't fall off. And you have to build it so that nobody falls off. Now, here, the first question is, what's the connection to the previous mitzvah? The previous mitzvah was talking about sending away the mother bird. So why is this? What's the logic? Why does this mitzvah follow that mitzvah? The answer is, well, what did you allow the mother bird to do? You allowed the mother bird to go and build a new home. By not taking the mother bird, you allowed the mother bird to go and build another nest. Well, you took away the first nest, you took the eggs in the nest, maybe you took the entire nest. Now you've allowed the mother bird to go and build another home. Since you allow the mother bird, you fulfilled the Torah's mitzvah. So the reward is that a person will find the finances to be able to build their own home. That person will be able to build a new home. Number one. Number two, you may become very confident in your own home. Because what was the reward? What's the reward for sending away the mother bird? The Torah says that you send away the mother bird, L'man yitav loch v'harachta yamin. It'll be good for you and you'll live long. Well, if the Torah promised me I'll live long, so I could build a roof without taking any safety precautions. Because after all, the Torah says that I'm going to live long. So the Torah is teaching you it doesn't work that way. That's a reward that a person is entitled to and the person is going to get. But it doesn't mean that we could therefore behave recklessly. It doesn't mean that a person should not live normally and take the normal precautions that one is meant to take. And certainly that you shouldn't create a situation where somebody else may fall off your roof. I think Steve Jobs, it wasn't Steve Jobs, who's the guy he was the guy who, those things that you stand on and you scoot around on? Segways. Who was the guy? The guy who invented Segway he got killed on a Segway. He was on he had this massive estate and he was on a Segway and he went off some sort of cliff on his own property on a Segway. So you can't. The fact that the Torah says that you're going to be rewarded with long life doesn't mean that you could therefore behave recklessly. Number one. Number two, whenever the Torah says, this is just a general rule, when the Torah says, you kisivna bayis chodesh, and you see that Rashi points this out. Rashi, 3 lines from the bottom in the right column. Rashi says, Im kiyamta mitzvah shiloach haken, if you fulfill the mitzvah, send away the mother bird, sofcha livnos bayis chodosh. Then you're going to build a new house, v'yikayim mitzvahs maket. Now what happens whenever the Torah says these things, and you don't see that the guy fulfilled the sending away the mother bird, but he didn't end up with building a new house. So here you always have to realize that there could be other factors at play. When the Torah makes a statement like this, the Torah is telling you, if all else is equal, what this mitzvah is worth. But there might be mitigating factors. Maybe a person spoke Lashon Hara also, and the punishment for Lashon Hara could be poverty. And therefore, you never know a person never knows what are the mitigating circumstances over here. What we need to do is the Torah is telling you, do you know how potent this mitzvah is? This mitzvah is so potent that it may very well be resulting in you eventually building a new home. You're going to build a new home. But there's another reason why this mitzvah follows the Shiluach HaKein. When a mother bird builds a nest, you take a few, what do they take? Leaves and some twigs, and you build yourself a nest. They're not very picky about what the nest is. They just build a nest, and they know how to build. Somehow animals are programmed to they build a nest. And the Torah is telling you that when you build a new house, try to take the example of the bird. The house shouldn't be ostentatious. Somebody just told me about a family has a house with 10 bathrooms, and who knows 26 rooms and 10 bathrooms. What do you need such an ostentatious house for? And anyway, how do you clean it for Pesach? You got to do a long bedikas chametz, right? How do you clean the house for Pesach? And we're not trying to be ostentatious. We're trying to be, there's a difference between being comfortable, a person's allowed to be comfortable, and a person's allowed to be in a situation where we're striving to have enough that puts us in a positive frame of mind so we could take life, we could accomplish something with our life. We didn't need an ostentatious house. You got to build this magnificent mansion that so and so. You really need that? Is it something you need, or is it something you need to show that it's like the husband who says to his wife, we're overdrawn in the bank again. You wrote, why are we overdrawn? The wife says it's the neighbor's fault. They're constantly doing things we can't afford. So you're trying to keep up with other people or show off for other people. The Torah says, "Don't be ostentatious. Just build be like the mother bird." Okay, then take a look at pasuk Yud. Lo sacharosh b'shor v'chamor yachdav. 5 lines from the bottom. Do not plow with an ox and a donkey together. And here, there's the prohibition to use any 2 animals in order to do work. You can't use 2 animals of unequal species to do work. So if when you're plowing in your field, you used to have 2 oxes plowing the plow, or two horses pulling a wagon. You can't have 2 different species doing something for you. And there are 2 reasons for it. What are the reasons? Why can't you do that?
Different levels of strength.
Different levels of strength. What's that? Animals, the animals generally not. What you mean by jealousy is mean difficulty. Where's the jealousy? One second, where's the jealousy? A cow's in,
You got an ox and a donkey. The donkey's like.
Okay, so that's what you call jealousy. The first thing say it's unfair to the weaker animal. Because the weaker animal now has to strain himself. A donkey now has to strain himself to keep up with an ox who's stronger. And it's unfair to the ox because now he has to pick up for the donkey. Exactly what you used to do with your younger brother when the 2 of you had to do a job, where you forced him to do more than he could do and generally took advantage of him, or you had to pick up for him. Right? You had to exert yourself more than he did. So the Torah says, number 1, there's something called tsar ba'alei chayim. It's unfair. You're causing distress to living creatures. How are you causing distress? The ox has to compensate for the donkey, and the donkey may have to strain himself more than he normally can to keep up with the ox. And therefore, the Torah says you don't use two animals of it. Number 1, that's one area of distress for the animal. There's another area of distress, a much more subtle area. An ox is a kosher animal. He chews his cud. The donkey does not. So the 2 of them could be working together, and all of a sudden the donkey hears the ox like, the ox is chewing. He's like, hey, bro, where'd you get the food? And the ox says to the donkey, you don't want any of this, believe me. But at the end of the day, the donkey's hungry and the ox is eating. And the donkey hears the ox is eating, and therefore the Torah says you don't pull with an ox and a donkey together. By the way, I skipped one point. Going back to building a completely different meaning, which is extremely important. I left it out. Go back again to Pasuk Ches for a second. When you build a new house and you make a railing, there shouldn't be, how did the article translate it? Not place blood in your house, meaning don't cause accidents, because the guy will fall off of it. Here, one of the classic commentaries says this is talking about very often a Baal Tshuva, that a person creates a new level for himself, which is what we're always striving for. We're always striving to create new levels. Sometimes we'll actually build in safeguards for ourselves that when we create the new house, we create our new level, sometimes some of the things that we do could be the actual cause that cause us to drop from that level. That means a person decides, listen, I'm trying to strive for a higher level, so you know what, I'm not going to listen to non-Jewish music. Now, non-Jewish music, assuming it's not a woman singing, and assuming that the lyrics are not suggestive, is not by definition prohibited. It may be distasteful, and it may be something a person should move away from. If it's a woman singing, or if the lyrics are suggestive, then obviously you cannot listen to it. But let's say it's classical. How about classical music? Okay, I personally don't go for it, but let's say I'm not going to listen to classical music because it's non-Jewish conductors, non-Jewish composers. And then one day a person feels weak. He says, you know what, boy, this Yiddishkeit is very demanding. I got to listen to some of this music. He created a barrier for himself. Now he broke that barrier. When he breaks that first barrier, which no one told you to put up that barrier. You put up that barrier, now you broke through it, and as a result of that, you feel, well, if I broke through that barrier, I could broke through my other barrier. You know, that barrier that I put up when it comes to kosher, and the barrier that I put up when it comes to keeping Shabbos. Once I broke through the minor barrier, I'm going to break through the major barrier also. This could be great, the cause of his entire downfall. Who told you to go and make life difficult for yourself? Who told you that you have to go to that extent and try to make life difficult for yourself? And sometimes the very act of doing something, by the way, it can have a bearing on other people. I'll give you a classic example. Let's say you're living in a frum community, and they have an Eruv. There's an Eruv around, and it's a legitimate Eruv. You're allowed by the letter of the law to carry. And you decide, I'm going to adopt this stringency and not carry even within a kosher Eruv. Well, that's a beautiful thing. Considering you have a wife and 4 children, all under the age of 1, and now how is she supposed to get out of the house? She's locked in the house. Every Shabbos becomes a prison for her because she can't get out of the house unless she leaves you babysitting. But no man's going to do that. You know, when men babysit for all the children for any great length of time, it leads to alcohol abuse. So if you're, so what are you going to do? You're trapping her now. Who told you to take on that stringency? Who told you to do that? Maybe you should go and consult with somebody wiser, a halachic, a rabbinic authority, to find out, are you ready for that at this level? A person decides, I'm only going to eat a certain hechsher. And then one day you're on an airplane and they don't have that top grade hechsher. So you're torturing yourself on the airplane. Who told you to torture yourself? Who told you to get to that level? Who told you to jump? That's why a person has to have a mentor to let you know if you're ready for that stringency, you're not ready for that. But recognize that it's a stringency. Recognize that it's what it is. And also recognize, who are you? Are you sure you're ready for that? Are you sure it's not going? And by the way, the test, the determining factor here is generally, if you do adopt any sort of stringency, again, letter of the law, we have no choice. If you're on an airplane and they don't have your kosher meal and all they're serving is baked ham, you can't eat it. That's the way it goes. Sometimes Yiddishkeit could be a little challenging. But if there's something that is a optional Should I adopt that or not? The answer to that is, does it leave you tense or does it leave you upbeat? If you're tense as a result, then you're probably not on the level to do that. Again, we're talking about something that's not mandatory. If it leaves you upbeat, you're taking, I enjoy the challenge. Sometimes I told you many times, challenge is good, frustration is not. Sometimes in life, people like challenges. You have a project to do in the house. I enjoy the challenge of changing light bulbs. I don't enjoy the challenge of doing any other home repairs. Right, that leads to frustration, and even light bulbs is not a great sazach. I have somebody who's working in my house right now, putting some pipes in for me in my house. One of my son-in-laws, he loves the challenge. He's working out for 3 weeks. He loves the challenge. You have to know if you like the challenge or it leads to frustration. And Yiddishkeit is like that as well. Sometimes a person pushes himself. Let's say you push yourself to help other people. Let's say you're a very helpful person. You enjoy helping other people. If you help other people and you walk away frustrated, why doesn't anybody else help me? Then you know what? You shouldn't be doing it. Because you have no reason to demand it of other people. You decided to take it on. You can't expect everybody else to do it. And if you're going to get upset about it, then you shouldn't be doing it to begin with. That's the rule. Okay. So when you build a new house, and this applies to all Baalei Teshuvos, I'm striving for a new level. We're all striving to grow. If my growth is creating tension, get some input from somebody more experienced who can tell you whether the path you're traveling is the correct path. You know the famous example that the Mesilas Yesharim begins with? The Mesilas Yesharim, do you ever see, there's a garden maze. Mm-hmm. You ever see The Shining? Yeah. Yeah, I saw about 10 minutes of it, then I ran out and I couldn't take it. Mm-hmm. Jack Nicholson gave me the creeps on a good day. I didn't need when he's in a lonely hotel. That's for sure. I couldn't take it. But there is a garden maze, and you walk through these garden maze, and you can't see. There are hedges that are blocking you, so you can't see. You're in this garden. You have no idea where you're going. There's somebody standing on a platform, and he's telling you there's a platform at the finish line, and he's up on that platform, and he's saying, no, make a right. No, make a straight, a left, assuming it's somebody who likes you. Assuming it's somebody who likes you. We're not talking about the lady and the tiger. We're talking about assuming it's somebody who doesn't want to mess you over. And he's telling you, no, make a right, okay, a left over there. You'd be foolish not to listen to him. He's got the experience. He's been through the maze. He made it to the finish line. So a person who's had life experience and he's studied Torah and he's an old and wise and he knows what works and what doesn't work. And the rule in Yiddishkeit is just because it feels good doesn't mean it's the right thing. When it feels good, doesn't mean that it's necessarily the right path. Follow somebody. You wouldn't do that by medicine. A lot of medicines feel good. Codeine is wonderful. Right? Amphetamine's my favorite. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that you're going to just take it because it feels good. You go to a doctor and find out, should I be taking this or not? So if a person understands that Yiddishkeit is spiritual, you also get a mentor. Find somebody who's got experience. Get guidance. Just because it feels good doesn't make it right. And if you're tense as a result, there's no reason that a person should be a Torah Jew. You should not. It doesn't mean life is just a party, by the way. It doesn't mean that just because you're a Torah Jew, the bus is going to come on time. You go out there when it says 2 minutes, on the thing where the bus is coming in 2 minutes, 14 minutes later the bus shows up. All you're hoping is, I wish these people would just time the rest of my life. That's a long 2 minutes. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean everything goes well. It doesn't mean you don't get a big electric bill. And it doesn't mean your washing machine doesn't break at the absolute worst time on Erev Shabbos when your in-laws are coming. There are a lot of things can go. But at the end of the day, the observance of the tefillin, davening, Shabbos, kashrus, it shouldn't leave us tense. And if a person is tense, that means there's something needs a readjustment. Okay. I'll tell you something fascinating.
Rabbi,
yes.
With Yontifs and preparing for Shabbos and all that, wives.
There is tension, yes. There is tension, but it's what I call a happy tension. Yes, there is tension in the house, because put yourself in a wife's position. Every frum Jewish woman, every single Friday, she feels the weight and responsibility of an entire Shabbos, and often it's for the guests that the husband volunteered her to take care of. So there is tension on Friday, absolutely, because you got, remember, she's racing a clock. She's racing a clock because she's got to get finished. She loves that. She loves doing it. There isn't a from woman who doesn't want to prepare for Shabbos. But it doesn't mean there are certain times in life. It doesn't mean that she's doing it. But you're racing a clock. When we put on tefillin, you should, there's nothing to be tense about. Just don't wrap them too tight and cut off circulation. But there's nothing to be tense about. The same thing when it comes to same thing. A woman, you're right. Shabbos could be nerve-wracking. Therefore, it's got to be prepared, and the husband has to be there to help. Husband has to help his wife on it. Not help doesn't mean relax. It'll get done. Don't worry about it. That's not what help is. That doesn't help at all. That doesn't help. Help means do what you see what needs to be done. Help her out a little bit. I'm not talking about that. There are certain times. In general, there shouldn't be that a person is tense about Yiddishkeit. Shouldn't make us tense. That's the idea. Okay. Now take a look at the next one. There's something fascinating over here. First it says, Lo sachrosh b'shor v'chamar yachdav. Don't plow with an ox and a donkey. Look at the very next one. Lo silbash shatnes. Do not wear shatnes. Tsemer upishtim yachdav. You cannot wear a mix of wool and pishtim. What's it called? Wool and linen. You're not allowed to wear that mix anywhere on your clothing. That's why there's how does he translate it? The fibers. That means when you buy a new suit, do you know that clothing in Israel has a hechsher on it? Yeah, when you go into a suit shop, it'll have a patch or something sewed in that says this has been tested for shatnez. Now, with shatnez is wool and linen, and often in suits or suit jackets, the collar and certain parts of the sleeves are stiffened with linen. So it could be a wool suit that has linen that's stitched in various areas, which stiffens it up. There are laboratories that actually check for shatnez. In every frum community, there's a shatnez lab. A guy has a microscope, and they examine it for shatnez content. Some suits, it's possible to take it out. Actually, they could remove the shatnez. The guy says, "Yeah, you got shatnez in here. He's going to have to remove the shatnez." And there are others that are where it's so much, it's so embedded in it all over the place that you can't do anything with it. There's no way to take out the shatnez. There's also where the suits come from. From certain countries, there's a higher percentage than other. Chinese suits there is a higher percentage than European suits, for example. But they have to be tested. In Israel, when you go in, they've already been checked and tested. There's actually shatnez supervision. There's a hechsher on the suit. That means you eat it. It just means you could wear it. But at the end of the day, it's a prohibition. Now, one of the reasons it's prohibited is because the original offerings that were brought by Cain and Hevel, Cain brought something that grew out of the earth, which is where linen comes from, and Hevel brought wool. He brought animals, which is where wool comes from. Since the original mixture created conflict, it would led to the death of Cain. Cain was the first murder in history, first killing in history. Therefore, one of the ideas behind it is that you don't wear shatnez. That's one of the ideas. The other idea is that the Kohanim in the Beis Hamikdash did wear shatnez. The Kohanim serving in the Beis Hamikdash wore shatnez. Therefore, the average the ordinary man does not wear shatnez, like other things that are off limits. For example, there's a part of the animal, the sacrifice, there's something called chalev. Do you know what chalev is? Chalev is the forbidden fats of a kosher animal. Not chalav. Chalav is milk. Chalev is actually forbidden fats. In a kosher animal, there's certain fats which are used in the sacrificial service. the severity of eating the fats of a kosher animal, not all fats, we're talking about certain fats which are called chelev, the severity of eating the fats of a kosher, the chelev, is greater than the severity of eating pork. How do you like that? That means a person can have a kosher animal, and eating pork is prohibited. If there are witnesses, then a person is flogged in Beis at the time when there was corporal punishment. A person gets the flogging penalty. A person gets malchus. Chelev, the penalty is premature death. Same as eating on Yom Kippur. That's how severe it is. Now that's from a kosher animal. Now why should it be so severe? Because that's the portion that is given. The Medrash compares it to a waiter comes walking in, and he's got the king's dinner in his hand. The royal waiter comes walking in, and as he walks past you, you kind of take your hand and you grab a wing or a drumstick off the king's meal. That's considered a severe act of insubordination. You go and you take from the king. How dare you insult the king? The forbidden fats, are burnt on the altar from the korbanos, and therefore, for a layman to go and indulge in the fats is an act of chutzpah towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The same way that's got a limited use. Where is it used? In the Beis HaMikdash. Similarly, the clothing of the Kohanim, which contain shatnez in them, so then your average person is not allowed to wear shatnez. But it has to be checked. Now, I want to show you something. Where do you find in Torah any sort of forbidden mixture? What can you think of where it's forbidden to mix? Where are there forbidden mixtures in Torah? What's that? Ketorah is not a forbidden mixture. You're just not allowed to make ketorahs. Crossbreeding animals, shatnez, milk and meat.
Grain and vines, like sowing seed.
Good. Where else?
Fish and meat.
Fish and meat isn't prohibited by Torah law. Fish and meat is even by the letter of fish and meat is considered. There's some sort of health. We don't do it. We don't mix fish and meat, but it's not a Torah law. In Torah law, you're right. By the way, we don't think that's why you always, after you've had the fish on Shabbos, when they serve the first course, which is fish, if you eat fish, if you eat the fish, then often you rinse your mouth out, or you have a piece of bread, or you take a shot of you make a l'chaim. That's where the minhag comes. And if you've had a lot of fish, they have a lot of l'chaim. If you've had gefilte fish, then nothing can help you. But if you have you eat the fish, then you wash it, so there shouldn't be a mix between the meat and the fish and the meat. But by Torah law, there are 5 areas. Where are they?
Men and women.
Men and women definitely mix. Otherwise, there wouldn't be more men and women. There are certain forbidden. There are certain times. Yeah, not everything. You're right. Okay, let's take it one at a time. First, the most famous one: meat and milk. Can't meat and milk. You can't mix wool and linen. You're not allowed to plow with what we just said over here. You can't. You're not allowed to crossbreed animals, and you're not allowed to crossbreed agriculturally. Is what you mentioned. You can't put in. Okay. Now watch this. A man gets up in the morning, and the first thing he does is he gets dressed. A reminder from the Torah: you put on your clothes, but don't mix. No wool and linen. Then you go out to eat breakfast, and the Torah says, but you can't mix meat and milk. That's your clothing and your food. Then you go out to your field. You can't mix agriculturally, even out in the field. You go out to your livestock. You're not allowed to plow with them. Another reminder. Then you're not allowed to crossbreed your livestock. That means everywhere a Jew looks, his clothing, his food, agriculture, labor, livestock, everywhere we look, we see a reminder, don't mix. Which means ultimately, we're reminded everywhere we look, don't mix with the other nations. Don't intermarry with them, and don't mix with their idol worship, and don't mix with their values. That means we are a nation that lives alone. Don't look at them, Don't look at their values. Don't look at their behavior. Certainly their idol worship, and certainly not to intermarry with them. And a Jew, everywhere we look in our regular day-to-day life, food, clothing, livestock, agriculture, whatever we're doing, we have a reminder everywhere we look, everywhere you turn, don't mix. Why? You're a separate nation. You were Shabbos last Friday night. What did you say at Kiddush? What did they announce at Kiddush in public? And nobody objected. What did he say? He picked up a cup of wine and said what? Asher bachar banu, he chose us. And no liberals were there to object and say, well, you're a bunch of elitists. Everybody then indulged. We said, Asher bachar banu, he chose us. And then we made Havdalah, said, Amavdul bein kodesh l'chol, just like he separates bein Yisrael la'amim, between Jews and the nations, we're different. And we all agreed to it. We all said, oh, yeah, no, let me have another hit of that Glen Morangi. Right? Yeah, we all agreed to it. We were all there. We all agreed to it. Nobody objected, and you had a second helping of chont while singing all about how we're the chosen people. So at the end of the day, we're different, and we remain different. That's one of the reasons when Yaakov gave his sons the bracha. If you remember the bracha, his grandsons, to Ephraim and Menashe. What was the blessing? V'yidgu l'rov b'kerev ha'aretz. You should be like fish on land. First of all, the idea of being fish on land, I don't know if that's such a bracha. You know, most of the time you put a fish on land, I don't know if it's such a great thing. Fish don't do really good on land. They're much better in water. So there are several lessons here. You ever take a fish out of water, what does the fish do?
Flops around.
He flops around. The fish is just jumping around. Now, if you didn't know anything, if you're just looking from the distance, that fish looks like he's in a discotheque. He looks like having a great time, but he's just bouncing around, from place to place. And that's really what the world is like. The world, people are just bouncing around all over the place. They just look like they're having the best time. And really, what is it? They're in their death throes. They're in their death. Fish is just jumping around. You can even put it to music, but with a beat. And then some lyrics about beating up a policeman or something. That'd be great. And what does it look like? And the fish just looks like he's in his day. The fish looks like he's having the best time, and he's in his death throes. But it's even more than that. That's a fish on land. What does it mean, a fish on land? The answer is, I'll ask you a personal question. You don't have to answer if you don't want. Have you ever thought about being a bird?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Of course. Have you ever tried flapping your wings? Have you ever gone? I'll admit in public, I'm not embarrassed. I have been on a windy day, on a really windy day, especially if there's traffic, like maybe this will be that moment. First you look around, make sure nobody's watching you. Even though I've done it and periodically, then nobody's watching me, and then somehow I get to shul that night and I'm getting some funny looks. Yeah. But have you ever thought of being a fish? I've looked at aquariums, and my first thought when I see fish in an aquarium is, what do you guys do all day? You're just kind of swimming back. You were there. There's nothing there. What are you looking at? Why are you going back and forth? But to be a fish, I've actually tried thinking about what it's like. I've done this. I'm telling you, I will admit this in public. I've tried thinking about what is it like breathing water. Imagine breathing water. And you know what ends up happening? I start coughing. I'm like, because to be a bird, there's nothing, I flap, all right, oh well, here I am, I'm still on the ground. A fish is completely different element. You're looking at a fish, and you have zero connection. A bird I could relate to. I could relate to a bird. I could even jump up and down on my mattress. A fish, I have zero connection with the fish. Even though I see it, it's right there, right in front of me. That was the bracha of Yaakov to his grandchildren. You'll be like a fish on land. That means the nations see us. They look at us. Remember we were speaking about yesterday in Shir? Imagine a non-Jew walking into, we were talking about this, a non-Jew walks into a Jewish home. The first thing you notice is that by every sink, there's a big double-handled cup. And they must think we're a bunch of, like being in a German beer hall. Where there's a mug in every room for the Jews. What is he? He has no idea what that is. A non-Jew that walks into a Friday night meal, a Shabbos meal, what does he see? A bunch of people dressed nicely, sitting around a table with good food. Can he imagine what we're experiencing on a Shabbos? There's something that we're feeling on Shabbos that you cannot identify. Even for ourselves, I can't explain it. But there's something happening at a Shabbos table. They're looking at us. They look at 100,000 Jews crowd a stadium to celebrate finishing a set of books. Go explain a siyum of Shas to a goy. Explain that to him. Like, oh, yeah, well, we did that. I mean, we had a party when we finished Harry Potter. You know, that's you can't possibly. We're fish on land. They can't. They see us. We look the same. 2 ears, 1 nose. Hopefully, we look exactly the same. Everything about it is the same, but there's zero connection. There's zero connection. That's what the Torah is reminding you. You're different. You're different. Don't mix. We're not interested in your values. We're not interested in your ideas. Don't bother us, and we won't bother you. That's our attitude. Just leave us alone. Don't put us in ovens. Leave us alone, and we'll all get along. That's all we're asking for. That's all we're asking for. That's the reminder. Everywhere you look, everywhere a Jew looks, you see that reminder. Yes, somebody had a question. Yeah, Hoodie, go ahead.
So if you're saying that we all are like fish, so then why did Yaakov only bless?
There was he was Yosef's sons. That's a different issue. Why they were one of the reasons that they earned the blessing. The contrary, one of the reasons Yosef's sons earned the blessing is because they were living among the non-Jews and remained separate. The other brothers were all living in the Frum community. They were all living in Bnei Brak together with Yaakov Avinu. They were all together. They were all in Lakewood. Yosef and his sons were living in Saskatchewan. And they managed to maintain their Jewish identity. You're the ones you are the ultimate fish on land. You're the ones who managed to stay separate from the other nations. Yeah, Sylvia, go ahead.
So, if that's the case, why are we dispersed around the world and still, for thousands of years, still dispersed?
That's a good question. Why are we dispersed? Because we were punished in place and thrown into and put into Golus. And now we have the challenge of that's a good question. We have to maintain our Judaism even though we've been dispersed.
America's been the worst of them all, of the assimilation.
You're right. Okay, that's part of God's plan. That's part of God's plan. That's part of God's plan, as He put us into exile because now you're going to be challenged by it. But at the end of the day, that's wherever we are, and whenever and wherever, we still have that job to maintain our identity and remain separate. Realize that you're not meant to mix. Okay. Somebody else have a question? Yeah, please go ahead.
I heard we're kind of like octopuses. Why is that?
We're like octopuses? I don't know where you heard that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what's the source for that.
I don't know the source.
Maybe because we light 8 candles on Hanukkah. That's our octo. Could be. Could be. I'm not sure. Oh, because we are above nature. Number 8 represents the number above nature. So we're what do you call it? But that's as far as octopus is kind of creepy if you ask me. I'd rather be a llama. All right, now take a look at the next section over here. Talks about a man and woman get married, and he spreads a rumor about her that she was unfaithful. They get married. He says she was not a virgin when he married her, and he spreads a negative report about her. And then they figure out a way. They manage to determine that she was pure before they got married, and then he's going to be punished. Now take a look at page 1052. Look at the punishment that this man gets for spreading a bad report about his wife. In Pasuk 18, it's on page 1052 for 7 lines from the top. So it says, what do they do with this guy after they've proven that she was pure, she had not committed adultery before marriage, and or during the marriage. During the marriage. So it says, "V'lakchu eziknei ha'ir hahi es ha'ish v'yisru oso." The elders, first of all, he's flogged. V'anshu oso mea kesef, he's fined. V'nosnu lavi anara, he must give it to the father. Ki hotzi shemra al besulas Yisrael, he spread a negative report about a pure Jewish woman. V'lo siya isha lo yuchal l'shalchav kol yamav, he is not allowed to divorce her. How do you like that? His punishment fits the crime. You tried to spread a report in order that they should rule you're not allowed to remain living with her, and therefore the punishment is now you're going to keep her. Now you have to stay with her. That's the first thing. How much does he have to pay? What is the fine? 100 zuz. Now take a look at, skip down to the bottom of the page. 20, pasuk 28, 6 lines from the bottom. Ki motzei ish nara besula asher lo arasa, a man finds a young girl, utefasa v'shach avima v'nimtzo, he violates her forcibly. The guy raped her. And she's a single woman. So the crime is not a crime that's punishable, it's not a capital offense because she's not a married woman. But he violated her. So what is his punishment? V'nasan ha'isha shoche vima la'avi anar chamishim kesef, he pays 50. And you see over here that a verbally assaulting somebody, where the man tried to spread a negative report about his wife, where he said it, he pays 100. For the physical assault, it's half, which shows you that sometimes words are worse than the physical. And the idea of sticks and stones may break your bones, but names can never hurt you is simply not true, because verbally it hurts a lot. The answer to your question is you're right, it would have led to something else, but as he said it, the words that he said are punishable by 100. Turned out it wasn't true. It was a false rumor. False rumor, you pay 100. For a physical assault, you only pay 50. 1 second. And everybody asks the following question. First of all, you got to pay 50 kesef. V'lo siya leisha, and now he has to marry her. Tachas sherina lo yuchal l'shalcha kol yamav. He has to marry this girl. He violated her. He has to marry her. What's the question? What are you going to ask me? Why would she want to marry him? I mean, the guy, so the answer is, A, she doesn't have to marry him. He has to marry her. She has a right not to marry him. I mean, after all, he has demonstrated bad midos. So she has a right. She has a right not to marry him. Number one. Number two, it doesn't have to be that he grabbed the girl in the dark in Central Park, while she was screaming. It could be what they call nowadays, they call date rape. He had certain ideas, she had certain ideas, but her ideas and other ideas were slightly off. That's all. They have known each other for a while. It's just that, they like each other. They were planning on getting married. Just that he was a little more out of control than she was. They were both out of control. He was just a little more out of control. Here, the Torah says the punishment is he's going to have to marry. Why is that? Why does he have to marry her? And this is very revealing about our society. And this is also something that tells us about what the Torah says about don't mix. The answer is that there was a time in history where a girl got married and she was pure. And a girl who was not pure was considered tainted goods. There was a time in history like that. And a girl was tainted goods, she's going to have trouble getting married. Because why? The guys are not interested. We're not interested in that sort. Nowadays, nobody cares. Certainly in the non-Jewish world. Nowadays, and then when they ask us, why is our society, why do you separate? Why is there the genders are segregated? What are you, a bunch of old-fashioned medieval people? The answer is yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we have certain values. And all of these values, this is only an example, by the way. This is only an example. All the values of the world today, all the values of liberal and women's right, women's liberation and all that, they're all things that are not Torah values. And in a healthy Torah world, these values it doesn't enter a Torah home. That's what we're fighting against. And all the values, the valuelessness of the world. Marijuana is legalized. Marijuana now is legalized. In a Torah home, there is no marijuana. Whether there should be or not is a different question. There is no drug abuse. It doesn't mean that there's none. It means that percentage-wise, compared to the rest of the world, we're still holding on. There have been things have invaded us. The proliferation of pornography because of modern technology. So it's a problem. It's a problem. These are problems that generally were limited today. Today there's much more of it. It's much more accessible today. And that's what we're trying to safeguard against all of these things. The Torah is going to mention all sorts of things that we try to safeguard against. And the only way we can do that is the realization that we said earlier, we don't mix. We're not interested in those values. People have said, well, look at all the good you can do with it. When the telephone first came out, let me ask you, just a regular telephone. A telephone, there used to be, it was a time telephones were connected to a wall. Not only that, do you remember, Shlomo, do you remember you actually had a dial, a telephone, a rotary, you actually had a dial. I don't know, many of you guys have not seen that. You actually had a dial. And by the way, Tivi, you remember that. You dialed the phone. What happened if you got a chas v'sholom, if you got a busy signal, what did you do? You actually had a dial again. Could you believe it? Could you believe it? You actually had a dial again. It was just, but we made it. Here we are. We survived it. Let me ask a question. Before the advent of the telephone and after the advent of the telephone, was the telephone a good thing? It could be used for good things. Do you think there were more family feuds before the telephone or after the telephone? Do you think more Lashon Hara in the world before the telephone or after the telephone? Yeah, I would say after the telephone, and there probably sisters-in-law who were able to fight more often after the phone. The answer is that, like everything, it could be used for the good, and it could be used positively and negatively. Snake venom also has positive uses. Snake venom has positive uses. Is it a good or a bad? Well, if the snake's got his teeth in the guy's ankle, it's a bad. But if it's being used as a medication, so then it's a good. It depends how you use it. But the fact that it's available doesn't mean we have to grab it. And just as a conclusion, do you know that Reb Chaim Kanievsky never had a telephone? How do you like, I'm talking about a ball phone, never had any phone in his house. How do you like that? He seemed to do okay. It's like, yeah, but how do you, I've never owned a portable phone. I personally have never had what do you call a mobile phone. I've never had a mobile phone, ever. I never owned a mobile phone. People said, every time people say, really? People said to me, what do you do? That's the most common reaction when public guys say, what's your phone, what's your number, what's your mobile number? I don't have one. Really? What do you do? That's what the people have reacted. I didn't say I had an oxygen shortage. I said I don't have a phone. So people say, what do you do? So what do I do about what? Well, what if people are trying to contact you? So they call up the house and they leave a message like we've done for the last 30 years. And if they want to give me money, I call them back. And if they want my money, I don't call them back. What's so complicated? What's so difficult to understand? Well, what if your wife needs to get a hold of you? Well, that's why I don't have a phone. But what if it's an emergency? Gentlemen, how many emergencies have you had on your phones? I've had 2 emergencies in all the years, both because there was a mouse in the house. So if there's an emergency, you call up the secretary, and the secretary sends a message to me and says, your wife called. And I call home. And she says, you get to the house because there's a mouse in the house. Okay, that's an emergency. So she got a hold of me. That's okay. We survived it. We survived it. Are there good things? Yes, there are good things. Are there possible drawbacks? Possible pitfalls? Yeah. So we have to be able to use it. But we don't have to grab at it just because it's available. We don't have to grab it just because it became available. And just because the world at large feels that things are important, it certainly isn't something that we put any weight on. All right, Amir Tzashem, we'll continue. We're going to continue with Parshat Seitzei next week for Sunday. We have to. There's a lot more So we're going to have to continue a little bit. We'll have one shear next week on Parshat Seitzei, then we're going on to Kisavli Mitzvah Hashem. Okay, I'll see you guys.
Is this why Pirkei Avot says not to have long conversations with women?
Among other reasons.
Don't get married?
Among